Hi there YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So you've probably heard the quote-unquote rumours Totally Thomas UK has announced that Thomas Wooden Railway 2022 version has been discontinued. That was my existential dread face. So this was very fortuitous timing that when I was at Day Out with Thomas, and if you haven't seen my videos about that, they will be linked down in the description below. I wanted to get something apart from some AI stuff, which I've already talked about, that was a bit more permanent to serve as a reminder from what I got. And they didn't have any fun or exclusive Thomas stuff, but they do have a fantastic Brio selection there at the New South Wales Rail Museum. And so I picked up this, which is the old steam engine, which is a Brio train, and the Brio world is huge, and I have a very interesting association with Brio. My introduction to it was that my parents used to buy me Brio tracks for my Thomas and Friends Wooden Railway because the Brio stuff was apparently cheaper. That is what my parents' rationale was for buying that product. And that's why I wanted to pick this up, because you would have just seen this got a price tag on it, 25 Australian dollars. You know what else is 25 Australian dollars, or actually in fact even less? Your Thomas Wooden Railway small engines. Obviously this is a celebration version from the pack, but he's, you know, the same as the individual one. And so I thought it would be a very interesting comparison, given that we now know that Thomas Wooden Railway has been cancelled, and there are plenty of people speculating as to why that might be. I thought we'd have a bit of a comparison as to what's going on in the world of of wooden railways, and whether or not that might be having something to do with why it was cancelled. So in this interesting review / video essay, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Okay, so you can see here, we'll do a quick spin. I haven't seen Brio stuff in stores for a long time. It doesn't get sold at many stores. Some specialist toy shops have it, but otherwise the New South Wales Rail Museum, I think, is probably the most well-stocked I've ever seen Brio. Brio World, as it's called. You can see the packaging there on the back. Where is it? So it's designed in Sweden. I knew it was from Europe. Manufactured for Sweden, but made in China. And imported to the UK. So it doesn't even seem like there's a proper Australian logo on this one. But again, if we're thinking about, well, you know, Brio is very expensive, and it's made, you know, just down the road from where Thomas Wooden Railway is made. And you can see, yes, this is the kind of engine that I had. If you watched my very old, on my old channel video about my Thomas Wooden Railway collection, Mark 1, you would have seen some of this stuff, and yeah, it was very old. But I do remember that iconic car, and there were similar engines to that. And Brio does this weird thing with their connecting engines where they have these little like pieces of metal that hold them together. But yeah, that's, you can see, that's what we get here for a packaging. Looks like there's some track here, but there's not. It's all just cardboard. And otherwise, yes, you can see 25 Australian dollars. So let me crack the old steam engine out of the box and we'll take a look. All right, we'll bring this in for the close-up spin. All right, so come in. Obviously there's no face, but we do have like a little, what is a faux painted lamp there. We've got the cow catcher and the big wide funnels. This is clearly an American kind of inspired design. You've got the detailing there for the dome. This is a half plastic, half wood engine. So the cab here is wood, and as is the chassis. So this chassis section is wood, but then this whole section here with the boiler, the front of the engine, and the cow catcher is all plastic. Then here we've got the classic Brio wheels. Now, this is something that hasn't changed since my Brio days, where they had these kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like kind of pinned on wheels with the metal part in the middle showing through, and then these little red runner wheels on the side. You can see we come to the back, we've got a single magnet on the back, nothing on the front. And then, yes, we've got here probably the star feature, which is that we've got this big wheel that is connected to these coupling rods and to the pistons. So you do get a very nice little motion when you put this engine along. He reminds me of old Puffer Pete from Chuggington. That's kind of the vibe that it gives off. Yeah, that might get me cancelled, I don't know. But yeah, that looks really nice. It's a fun little motion, and it certainly works, you know, does everything it says on the tin. But again, remember, this is $25 for retail price. I mean, again, these museums sometimes have a markup. So let's just say, for purposes of comparison, $20. And $20 is also the recommended retail price for these, which are the now discontinued apparently, and I have looked on the Mattel Australia website, and yes, there's only like Thomas is like the only thing left on their website. Everything else has disappeared. So I suspect it's correct that this has been dumped again. This is also recommended retail price for $20, and you can get it for about that much money. If we do a comparison in terms of size, and then you're coupling together, that's good. You can see you're pretty much getting the same volume of stuff with both items. In terms of the detailing, I mean, this again is the extra detailed one, but certainly I would say Thomas is more detailed than this, but this is also not trying to be a steam engine, so I mean a particular character from a show. So they're probably about the same in the detailing department. Again, in terms of the wood components, there's definitely much more wood in this Thomas versus this Brio engine. You can feel this one's much heavier than the Brio engine. Again, only part of Thomas that's plastic on this one is just his smoke box, and then of course the wheels, whereas this one, that whole front section is made of plastic. And you can see here, we've just got Brio written on the bottom, we've got the actual name of the engine. So yeah, from a comparison standpoint, I think this is a really interesting jumping off point to talk about what might have happened here with Thomas Wooden Railway being cancelled. And I think I commented this on a different video, but I think the problem that's happened with Thomas Wooden Railway is two things. Firstly, three things. Firstly, I think the problem was that they did this huge launch and then they didn't follow it up with anything. And this seems to be a common mistake that Mattel keeps making, but if you don't invest in the product line, you're not going to make sales. And so I think the real problem was that this line was either delayed on purpose or accidentally, but was released at a time when All Engines Go was the thing that they were pushing, and yet these engines do not look like they look like in All Engines Go. And although it was, rumored / promised, they never made the characters from All Engines Go. So yes, this would have appealed to parents who recognize these characters from when they perhaps watch the show, or they have friends or family who watch the show. It didn't necessarily appeal to kids in the ongoing way. So obviously when it first came out, I'm sure lots of parents were like, oh, Thomas and Friends, and they just bought it for their kids because it was the only thing you could buy, and it is a premium. It's nicer than just getting like a plastic engine, and the packaging's premium, etc, etc. But after you've bought the first wave for your kids, well, you go back to the store and it's just the same items on the shelf, and it's been the same items on the shelf for 2 years now. So I can see why after what initially looked like very good sales from everything that I saw, it stagnated, because essentially all the people who would have just still been familiar with the old show bought it, and then 2 years passed. The kids now who were introduced to Thomas only know All Engines Go, and the toys don't look like what they look in All Engines Go, and their favorite characters aren't available. So I think that really would have killed. That certainly didn't help. I think the second thing too is the pricing, and I don't think Thomas Wooden Railway is actually too expensive. And what I say by that is Brio is very expensive. It's almost more expensive. The track pack that you can get for Brio is like $100. Their starter sets are all like $100. It's a very, very expensive premium toy train, which is probably why it doesn't get sold in many places, and a premium wooden toy train. But there's only one Brio, whereas the problem in 2025 with Thomas Wooden Railway is that there are two other Thomas lines that you could buy your kid. If your kid likes Thomas, yes, you could buy them this very beautiful, very fantastic Thomas Wooden Railway Thomas for $20. Or you could buy them 3 characters from the Metal Engine line, which is also, as I've talked about and reviewed very extensively on this channel, a very good line. They do quite a good job of capturing the characters. And again, really, yes, you can maybe tell they're the same character, but you can really see this is going for a totally different audience to this. And so just from a value proposition, if you're a parent, particularly given what's going on in the last few years with costs and inflation and that kind of thing, if you're going to spend $20 on a kid for your toy, you could buy them 3 engines of these small engines, or you could buy them 1 single Thomas. So that is, I think, the second part of the issue. And I think the third part of the issue with these is just availability. There haven't been, initially when it first launched, it was available everywhere. But then again, with the Mattel stock problems, it seems to have disappeared. It was never sold in your average toy shops, and the problem was that Thomas Wooden originally did used to be sold when it first came out in every shop. If your shop had Thomas, they had Thomas Wooden Railway, but that has not been what's happened with this version. It seems to have been only exclusively sold in certain shops and not others, which, particularly given Thomas Wood was such a disaster, I think if you were trying to bring people back, they also missed the opportunity. So I think it seems to be, in my mind, a failure of distribution, marketing, product strategy, which is why this has failed, and not because the toys were not good. I think overall Thomas Wooden Railway 2022 is fantastic. There are a couple of videos I've seen of people saying otherwise. I don't understand those people at all. I think the nostalgia has blinded people to thinking that this is not a good toy because we're comparing it to what came before. I think if we look at this from an objective, does it look like the characters from the show? Does it represent quality materials? Does it have all the details we expect from Thomas and Friends toys? I think this smashes so much of the old Thomas Wooden Railway out of the park. Not in every way, but certainly overall as a packaged item, I think this does a fantastic job. So I'm very sad to see it go. But what it does show, and what this Brio little train shows, which is a fantastic little train, is that it's not a problem that people won't want. People must pay good money for these, otherwise they would have gone out of business 30 years ago. Brio's been around at least since I was a kid 30 years ago. The problem seems to be is the way things are being marketed is what's making Thomas at the same price point, or in fact a little bit cheaper than its Brio counterpart, which is not branded. There's no TV show, there's no stories, there's no magazines, there's no clothes, there's not a whole empire to support these Brio trains. These are being successful and Thomas is not. And what that tells you is there's a brand problem and not a toy problem. So hopefully Mattel in their next iteration will think about that a little bit more. But I'd be very keen to hear all your thoughts, and particularly your thoughts when we compare these two items, which are nominally at the same price point, that they're doing a very similar thing, and yet one of them is succeeding and the other one is failing. Anyway, hopefully you found this video interesting. I thought I'd do something a little bit shorter than my big long rant like I did when Thomas Wood ended. So as always, thanks for watching. That's all we've got time for. The 6 Dream Trains.